Anxiety isn't a sign that something's wrong with you. It's a sign that your ego thinks you're in danger, even when you're safe. And in this video, I'll be breaking down what anxiety is, where it comes from, why it shows up right before your breakthrough, and how to silence it in the moment. Now let's begin. When I was 19 years old, I was about a year into my trading journey. I was also working part-time for a online jewelry brand, and I was just basically running errands and doing customer service and a lot of the admin stuff. But during this time, because I was working for an entrepreneur, as the business is doing well, I'm doing well, and as the business isn't doing well, I'm not doing well. So I had to ride the waves of those financial roller coasters of the business, and that led to at one point being down to my last £20. I was owed some money at the time, but at that time I was 19 years old. I had £20 to my name, and I had bills to pay for in the hundreds, and I literally had no answer. I had no solution. Didn't know what to do or whatever. But there was something interesting during that time that I will always remember. That was the first time in my life that I didn't panic. That was the first time in my life that I was at a financial low point and I was still calm. I still had this calm clarity and this inner conviction, because deep down I knew that God had me. Deep down I knew that whatever the situation I was in, God would sort it out. And as I knew it would, God sorted out the situation. But one thing I learned from that scenario was that conviction dissolves anxiety. Throughout that whole time that I was working, that I was learning to trade, that I was experiencing these emotional low points and also these financial low points, it was the inner conviction, not only in myself, but in God and in the process, and in knowing that I would eventually come out of this situation better than I went in. It was that inner conviction that dissolved my anxiety. So I was able to have £20 to my name, bills in the hundreds, and still maintain this inner poise, this calm clarity, this inner confidence, because I've had so many situations in the past and so many instances and evidence of divine intervention right when I needed it, of God coming and saving the day right when I needed it. So this situation was no different. And this was the first time in my life that I really embodied and really understood that it's the inner conviction that dissolves anxiety. So, what is anxiety? Anxiety is your ego's fear of the unknown. It's fear of the future. All those what if questions, all those how am I going to do X, how am I going to get Y, when is this going to happen, and all of those questions are your ego's desperate seeking and desperate search for some sort of certainty. You see, your ego only has one job, and that one job is survival, security, safety, shelter, food, procreation. All of those things are what your ego focuses on, and that can be to the detriment of our own emotional state, of our own mental stability. The ego is an energy, and it's made up of your identity. It's made up of all the things that you believe about yourself and you think about yourself, and all the things that you've been told about yourself as well. That's why often when people express opinions or beliefs contrary to your own, it can sometimes feel like a personal attack to you, and that feeling of personal attack is your ego. So your ego is made up of your identity, And it's an energy. It's an energy because it's not something that can be seen or touched. It's an energy. And because it's an energy, it cannot be destroyed. This is contrary to the popular belief that you can kill your ego, that you can get rid of your ego, and you see all these videos online about how to kill your ego and all these people saying they don't have an ego. To have no ego would mean you would have no survival instincts. And I doubt that's the case. We both know that's not the case, you know. So the ego is not an enemy. It's not something to destroy. It's not something you can destroy. It's here to protect you and keep you on earth as long as possible for you to experience what you need to experience and complete the missions you need to complete. The ego cannot be destroyed because it's an energy. And because energy can only be transferred from one form into another, you have to transform your perspective of the ego from being an enemy into an ally. You have to transform your perspective of your ego being a villain into being a friend. The only time the ego is a villain is when it's uncontrolled, when it's untamed. You know, it's your responsibility to be in control of your ego. That's why I love Dr. David Hawkins' book, The Map of Consciousness Explained, because that's where I first learned and first developed my perspective to see my own ego as a pet rather than an enemy. The ego is like a pet. It's something that you have to control. It's something that you have to lead. And it only causes issues when it's unled, when it's untamed, when it's untrained. The ego is always going to be with us for the rest of our life. It's been here for millions of years before we even existed. I mean, we've always existed, but you feel me? But it's been here for millions of years and it's not going anywhere. So instead of fighting it, instead of battling it, why don't we work with it? Why don't we train it? Why don't we control it? Why don't we master it? That's what your job is to do. Your ego loves certainty and control. That's why as soon as you're stepping into the unknown, the ego panics. Every time you try to level up, every time you raise your frequency, every time you increase your awareness, your ego panics because you're stepping into the unknown. You're becoming a new person. And that's a threat to the ego. You know, that represents death to the ego. So that shows up as anxiety. It shows up as nervousness right before a business meeting, right before a job interview, right before a date, whatever event. You know, these nerves that you feel inside of your body are the ego's fear being projected onto you. And it's very important to know and to shift your perspective and to see nerves as a good thing, because nerves are simply just your body telling you and letting you know that you're ready to perform, that you're ready to do whatever task you're about to do. Your body's gearing up to be the best that it can possibly be in order to have the highest probability of having the best outcome possible. So that's what nerves are. And when you see them as that, it helps relieve a lot of the tension and a lot of the inner disharmony, because you know that, the increased heart rate, the adrenaline, the constant what if thoughts are simply your body gearing up to be its best, for you to do your best. So I propose that perspective to you and let you know that it's natural to feel anxiety before you do things. Don't feel ashamed, don't feel weak, don't feel, like a victim, but own the moment. Know that it's your body gearing up to be able to handle whatever's on the other side of the unknown to the best of its ability. Now, here's how to make it practical, because people often make the mistake of trying to use the mind to fight the mind's battles, but really, the body is the gateway to the mind. So, we're going to use the body in order to dissolve the anxiety, dissolve the nervousness. So, here's what we're going to do. Whenever you notice yourself spiraling, whenever you are feeling nervous, you're going to do the first 5 steps of the 7-step method. Number 1, you're going to curate your perspective. Perspective is the first step of the 7-step method, and simply curating your perspective so that it serves you is the first thing that you need to do. You need to see anxiety for what it really is, which is your ego's fear of the unknown. So if your ego fears the unknown, give it something to know. Predetermine the outcome that's going to happen from whatever you're about to do. Even if it doesn't work out as it's supposed to, if you have the perspective that whatever happens, I'm going to come out of this situation better than I went in, that's going to help you reduce the nerves and reduce the anxiety, because you start to see it from a more positive and more productive light. Even if you go into a meeting and it doesn't go how it's supposed to, or even if you go to your boss and you ask for a raise and you don't get the raise, you will know that you've actually done something challenging. You've overcome your anxiety, and this adds to the backlog of proof that you have to show that you're someone that goes for what you want. You're someone that acts despite anxiety, and this is a powerful thing to know about yourself and adds even more conviction and confidence to you. Look at all the things I just mentioned. You know, all those things are great things to come out of a situation that is, you know, quote unquote, didn't work out, but it worked on you. You know, as Myron Golden always says, if it's not working for you, it's working on you. So the first thing you want to do is curate your perspective to serve you. Know that anxiety is fear of the unknown, and it's your ego's fear of the unknown. So give it something to know. Predetermine that the outcome will benefit you in some way. And one thing I love to do whenever I'm feeling anxious or feeling nervous before I'm about to act is I like to mentally affirm, you know, God's got me. Whatever happens, I'm going to come out of the situation better than I went in. You know, my higher self acts despite fear. You know, I go for what I want. But whatever happens, I know God's got me. And all those things I just mentioned are things that I like to mentally affirm whilst I'm feeling nervous or feeling anxious, and they help me just to act. And this gets rid of my ego's need for certainty or control and just makes it relax, because I have so much history and a backlog of God helping me out and intervening when I needed it. So this situation is not going to be any different, because every time I've needed God, God's always been there. So that's why I like to mentally affirm God's got me, and that helps me relax. It helps cool the nerves, cool the anxiety, and get back into that mode of execution. Step number 2 of the 7-step method is awareness. Now, because anxiety is a form of fear, this often causes fight or flight emotions, or fight or flight tendencies, fight or flight physiology. And this manifests as increased heart rate, increased breathing rate, your body temperature rising, your breathing becoming shallow, adrenaline maybe shaking, your chest feeling tight. All of these things are physiological effects of fight or flight. So what we have to do and what you have to do in a moment is bring your awareness to it. Notice your body's signs. And the first thing, as soon as you notice any signs, is to immediately start deep diaphragmatically breathing, which is breathing through your stomach. Breathing through your stomach, slow and controlled, is what immediately brings the attention and the focus back into like your entire body, instead of just being caught up in the thoughts and the mind. And it recenters you and brings all the attention and the energy back into self-control. So immediately start deep diaphragmatically breathing deeply through your stomach, and do 5 to 10 slow controlled breaths. Also, what you can do is close your eyes whilst you're doing it, because whilst you close your eyes, you cut off the external environment and don't allow any other stimulation to come in that can throw you off whack and add to your anxiety or your nervousness. So close your eyes and do 5 to 10 deep, slow breaths through your stomach. And step number 3 of the 7-step method and how to reduce anxiety and nervousness in a moment is acceptance, surrender, and neutrality, all combined. So those are 3 different steps, but we're putting them all together. in one big soup, because after and whilst you're breathing slowly, what you want to do is accept what you're feeling. Acceptance is transcendence. Acceptance is always the first step to transcend any emotion or any thought. Simply accepting it and bringing light and awareness to it is 80% of the work to dissolving it. So you're going to accept in the moment whilst you're breathing slowly through your belly, I'm feeling nervous right now, or my ego is scared right now. And as you're doing this, you're instantly going to feel some sort of relief because you're bringing awareness to the darkness that's happening inside of you. Remind yourself, this is just my body preparing me to perform, and relax and calm, and you'll notice the anxiety and the nerves reduce and the calm clarity returns. The case that you still feel anxious after doing all of those things, the last resort is just to black out and say, fuck it. I'm telling you, you just have to act, because the pain of inaction will always be greater than any action that you take. I'm going to repeat that one more time. The pain of inaction will always be greater than any action that you take. Courage is the ability to act despite fear. And you have to be courageous. You have to act. It doesn't matter how you feel. You have to act, because the pain of inaction will always be greater than you not taking any action at all. You know that, and I know that. There's so many times we've not done something, and these more thoughts of regret and more thoughts of anxiety and overthinking, and what if I did this and that will arise if you don't act. So you have to act. And your ability to be courageous, your ability to act despite fear, is something that you can strengthen and improve by engaging in daily acts of voluntary discomfort. If you're familiar with, Stoicism and the philosophies of Stoicism, then you'll know what this is. But voluntary discomfort is simply doing challenging things, doing things that are uncomfortable to your ego voluntarily. You're choosing to do them. These are simple things like going for an early morning run, cold showers, intermittent fasting, sexual abstinence, introspection, meditation, all these things that your ego doesn't like. By engaging in at least one of them or multiple examples of them every single day, you are training your ability to act despite discomfort. You're training your ability to go through challenging things every single day, and this enhances your ability to act even when you're feeling nervous, even when you're feeling anxious, because in those moments where you're about to do something, you can bring up all the challenging things you've ever overcome, all the things you've been through, and you've smoked it, you've driven through it. And then you can look at the situation you're about to go through and be like, this is nothing compared to all the things that I've done and overcome in the past. So that's how you build your courage. That's how you build your ability to act despite feeling anxious, is by daily doing something that is challenging, doing something that is uncomfortable, and finding comfort in the uncomfortable. When I used to do cold showers, as the cold water was beating down on me, pause. As the cold water was, hitting my skin, I was mentally affirming. Whilst breathing deeply, I'm enhancing my ability to handle adversity. I'm maintaining inner peace. Anything that makes your ego uncomfortable, when you directly do something challenging, you're training your resilience, you're training your ability to endure, you're training your courage. So I highly recommend doing some sort of voluntary discomfort daily, which I know you're probably already doing, and using that to turn your nerves or your fear into fire. That's how you do it. By invoking or evoking those memories and those emotions that you have whilst you're doing a voluntary discomfort. That straight drive, that straight discipline, that straight fuck it mentality. You bring it to those events, you bring it to those moments where you're feeling anxious or nervous, and you use that to transmute your fear into fire. Now the final exercise to dissolve your anxiety is what I call the ineffable imagination exercise. Now, if you're familiar with Neville Goddard books or you watch Neural Knowledge, then this exercise will be very familiar to you. Trauma, it takes only one negative event, one emotionally intense event to completely reshape someone's life, someone's perspective, someone's behavior, thoughts, actions, and emotions. You know, you can literally imagine something terrible and right there and then experience fight or flight tendencies, you know, your heart rate increasing, you might sweat, all from your imagination. And the opposite is true for something positive, something amazing. You can imagine it and experience actual chemicals being released in your body, actual feel-good hormones like dopamine, oxytocin, endorphins, serotonin. So the imagination is the key to creating conviction within you. And that conviction is what dissolves anxiety. The ego fears the unknown. So right now, we're about to give it something to know. The first thing you want to do in the ineffable imagination exercise is construct a short scene that conveys whatever outcome that you desire has already been done, it's been successful. So whether it's a business meeting, you would construct a scene to show that the business meeting was a success. And one thing I'd recommend is having some sort of family member or friend or a loved one congratulating you for accomplishing whatever it is that you desire in this scene, because that adds emotion to it, and the subconscious mind is programmed through emotion. The second thing you want to do is get into a relaxed meditative state after you've made this scene in your mind. Make sure that the scene is a short and loopable scene, whether you're sitting down or lying down, whatever's most comfortable to you. And you want to bring up the scene and immerse yourself fully in it in first person. Try and activate as many senses as you possibly can. What can you hear? What can you smell? What can you touch? And continuously loop it again and again and again until you feel your mind exerting any type of effort or strain. That's when you stop. And then the next thing you do is, as soon as you finish and you feel your mind straining, you want to bring up some sort of phrase or mental affirmation that you would actually say upon achieving the desired outcome that you're seeking. So in the case that it's a business meeting, you would mentally affirm or say, oh, I always knew that business meeting would go great. I always knew I would achieve X. I always knew I'd have Y. And after that, you just get up and go about your day. But the reason why we're even doing this ineffable imagination exercise is because the subconscious mind controls 95% of all of our behavior, actions, thoughts, and emotions. So by giving our subconscious this desired scene, this desired reality, 95% of everything we do is going to align to this imagination. Another thing as well is that the subconscious mind and the ego cannot tell the difference between reality and imagination. And the reason why it stops anxiety is because anxiety is your ego's fear of the unknown. So by giving it an image, by giving it a scene, by giving it an imagination, by giving it an emotional experience, it now knows something, which is, it's quite funny. We can finesse the ego, we can finesse the subconscious mind into thinking that our imagination is reality because they don't know the difference. So this is when the anxiety stops, and this is when the anxiety dissolves, because you've now given your ego something to know. It no longer fears the unknown because it now knows. And you might say, oh, you might think, oh, this sounds delusional, but delusion is only when you do these types of techniques, whether it's imagination, visualization, affirmations, and you send signals out to the universe, but you don't execute on the signals that you're receiving back in the form of intuition. That is when it's delusional. But when you're executing and you're doing all the things you know you need to do and you're following your intuition, then giving your mind an image, giving your subconscious an image, giving your ego an image, something to look towards is not delusional. And why are you gonna block your own blessings? Like, By you admitting and agreeing that it's delusion, you're basically saying that you're fine with experiencing all the inner disharmony, all the anxiety that comes from not being where you want to be in life, or comes from, the event that you're about to do. Why don't we just make the whole process more agreeable? Why don't we make the process a much smoother and more, enjoyable process? So I don't, succumb to or subscribe to the idea of it being delusion, and neither should you. We're simply here to dissolve anxiety. We're here to have a more harmonious relationship with our ego. That's what you're here for. So that's the quickest and easiest way to do it, is giving yourself, giving your ego, and giving your subconscious mind an image, a destination to hold on to. And that will literally stop your anxiety. That will stop the what if questions, the how is this going to happen? When is this going to happen? Why? Because you've emotionally experienced the desired outcome already. So you don't need to see it. You don't need, it's like you don't even need it anymore, because you've already emotionally experienced it. You've already experienced all the feel good hormones, the dopamine, the oxytocin, the endorphins, you've already experienced it. So yeah, man, this is exactly how I was able to be down to my last £20 when I was 19, with bills to pay for in the hundreds, and still be calm, still be cool. I had calm clarity because I had conviction, and I want you to have that too, because anxiety cannot coexist with conviction. Conviction is the key to silencing anxiety. Conviction is the key to silencing anxiety. If this video resonated with you and you found some value in it, then you'll love my ebook, Quiet the Noise Within. I literally wrote this book for the younger version of me that suffered in silence, and for those of you who feel like your mind is just a war zone. Inside, I break down the full 7-step method, the ineffable imagination exercise, and 20 plus other exercises that you can do on a daily to help you quiet the inner noise. Whether it's overthinking, anxiety, procrastination, insecurity, the inner critic, the ego, that whole book was written for all of those things, to quiet the inner noise. So the link will be in the description, and I hope this video helps you quiet the noise within and finally stop the anxiety.